Welcome to a midweek special episode of the Escape Your Limits podcast from the European Health and Fitness Forum. Many of the leading operators and suppliers from the global fitness industry attended the forum, and as the guests were making their way to enjoy the evening entertainment, Emma Barry and I collared a number of attendees from across the globe to get their pulse on how they see the industry today, what do they think are the biggest challenges facing the industry tomorrow, and what are their predictions for the future. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Escape Your Limits podcast, and if you do, please like, subscribe, and tell an industry friend. Thanks for listening.
My name is Chuck Runyon, CEO of Esteem brands. We are the parent company for Anytime Fitness, Basecamp Fitness, The Bar Method, Waxington City, and Stronger You. So all 5 brands.
Wow.
First of all, I love the engagement of our industry. I think it's as high as it's ever been. I like the collaboration of club owners and vendors coming together to promote and protect the industry. And I love this level of sophistication we're getting as an industry. I mean, the data is getting better, right? And so we're better operators than we were 5 years ago. We're better capitalized. This industry is, man, the best years are ahead. Yeah, so we have 5,500 locations around the world. And I would say generally, most of the industry is back. Our gyms are back to where they were. In fact, they're ahead of pre-COVID. The studio sector is still a little bit sluggish, but I think we're right on the cusp of getting past where we were pre-COVID. As I said a bit ago, I think there is so much growth ahead with consumer spending on wellness, the real estate. Now, granted, there's some headwinds when it comes to opening costs, but I just think, man, we've got some great growth ahead for all of us.
And a final question, which I wasn't going to ask you. So if you had to sort of, stretch out your projections for another 3 to 5 years, how are you feeling about that in terms of more people coming in, getting involved in health and fitness, opening clubs? What's your general feeling about that?
So if you think about it, we've only got maybe, 5 to 10 countries with double-digit consumer penetration. That's growing around the world, right? There are so many countries now growing. So I think, look, we're on a pathway to have 10,000 units by 2030. And as I talk to our competitors, there's room for all of us. So I think the industry is going to continue to add gyms and studios and virtual services. And with consumer growth, there's room for all of us to run successful businesses.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Matthew.
Liz Clark, President and CEO of IHRSA, the Global Health and Fitness Association. Yeah, I mean, first of all, great energy, great business meetings today. My takeaway is I took a lot away from the speakers today, mainly about how good our data is and how good our story is and the opportunities to pull from all of those pieces of data. Everything I heard from Philip Mills and folks like that, really tremendous. So just really almost like they've presented our talking points on a silver platter to us to be using. So that's my big takeaway, is to be using our data in a better way.
Right.
I'd say better than ever before. And I mean, I can say that with some bias because I'm new. So being a year and a half into my job and seeing what a divided industry we were in the middle of COVID and now come together, I think we've all gotten through such a crisis together and we've realized we're stronger together. So I believe that is one thing that's going to happen at all the times that we come together. Every time this industry comes together is being together and having a stronger voice, and not just manufacturers, but the supplier of the community, the people making the apps, the people making the technology. All of those feeders into our story are important to the health and wellness continuum.
Right. And final bonus question, like if you have to, I guess, prioritize what we should all be thinking about, and putting together a list, what would be at the top of that list in terms of one of the things that we should all be coming together on, looking at, focusing on, or working on together as an industry, would you say?
So listen, I think the easy answer there is how do we be considered essential, right? And that's where we all got screwed, is that we weren't considered essential. But the reality to that is there is no magic bullet to be considered essential. So what happens is you need to continuously be putting yourself in front of the decision makers, in front of lawmakers, and telling the story why we're essential. I've said that before. We all know that amongst ourselves, why we're preventative health care. But you go one circle outside of that and it's lost. There's too much noise. So I think what I would say is to first prioritize your messaging, and second, prioritize having relationships with the people that can make business decisions that will impact your business. Good, bad, or ugly.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So Emma Barry, good soul hunting, and I consult to the industry as well. I think it's the comparison and the nuances between, we've just been at IHRSA, we've been at other fitness conventions in other countries, and then we've been here. I think there's slightly different focuses. Like I think in the US, we're all about growth and AI and banks collapsing. And here, I noticed that, you know, it's very real. There's a war on the doorstep. There's real energy prices and things like that. But both have the willingness to come together in cooperatives. So we're seeing, you know, the World Active coming together, 35 different associations coming together. That's very powerful. We felt the collaboration in San Diego at IHRSA. So I sort of see the similarities, and then it's a little bit different over here. I think the way they're treating data is amazing. You know, we saw some great presentations today on data from Deloitte. We saw pricing strategies, just some really advanced businesses informing the industry. So if we can pull all that data in all ways and serve the industry with one voice, I think we'd get ahead really quickly. That was big for me. I'm like many speakers we heard today, I don't want us to fall back into business as usual, because I think business as usual is not good enough. You know, we have way bigger industries that are much more mature than we are. They've got better leadership, they have more digital is enabling things better, they're working together better and having a different narrative. So I would hope that, I think we have the pieces, it's a matter of stitching it all together and sticking at what we think is really good and then partnering for the rest. So I think that's a common theme that I've believed for a while, and I think that is so out of this event as well.
Very good. Well done.
Okay.
It was an inspiring day in the end. I spoke a lot of people also afterwards, and I think it's good to see that everybody is, in the way they treat themselves, is the way they would like others to be treated. So I think that's the inspirational things that I got back. In the end, it's all about the money. I work for Basic Fit, and you saw a slide that we did plus 15%. So I think we do pretty well, but we got a very hard period. So that's why we went down very low. And then it's more easy to gain your 15%, of course. But in the end, I'm now responsible as a property director, and we do a lot of new clubs, new buildings, and we are approaching Germany, and it's really successful. So I think, yeah, we are doing the right things.
And how is like in terms of finding locations and that? Is it tougher than what it was before? Is it a bit easier? Like what?
It depends. For instance, like France, we got now just opened our 700th club, and it was all in the big cities, and now we are looking at the boundaries, where can we go. And for Germany, we are really looking into the cluster functions, so not just one per site, but let's say 10, 15 if possible. And that's a bit difficult because it's a new country. But in the end, I think we got a right team, the right attitude. We know now which direction we need to go, and then it will only hit harder in the end.
Excellent. Thanks, man.
All right.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Time.
I'm Mohammed Iqbal. I'm the founder and CEO of SweatWorks. We just entered our 11th year in the industry. I think it's really about different companies, groups, and technologies coming together. We lived in somewhat of a siloed environment over the last couple of decades, and the biggest takeaway is seeing these walls being broken down and the willingness of people to come together and work together. Currently, I would view it as being largely fragmented. A lot of people innovating, working within their own silos, but they recognize that. They recognize that we live in a fragmented industry, and in order for us to move the consumer forward, we have to come together, and we see some of that happening. And some examples of that are, we were speaking with David Wright from Mizon earlier, opening up their API, or Technogym opening up their My Wellness Hub ecosystem so other people can integrate with them.
And what would you say the key barrier that we need to overcome as an industry outside of the integration piece?
I think the biggest one is interoperability, and that is really coming up with a standard and really having people agree on what does it mean to have your health profile, and how do you come together. So instead of having 7, 8, 10 different profiles and having you exist as different people across multiple platforms, how can you kind of bring it together to create this true picture of health for you?
Excellent. Thank you, Mike.
All right.
Introducing the next big thing in functional training, the Escape Barrow, a revolutionary training tool that combines a loaded farmer's carry with a sled push to develop hip, grip, and core strength. Developed in partnership with Pete Holman, inventor of the TRX Rip Trainer and Nautilus Glute Drive, the Escape Barrow can be rolled, pushed, dragged and carried. The Escape Barrow packs a punch with an impressive load capacity of 440 pounds, and with a two-stage galvanized paint covering process, it's also ideal for outdoor use. So head over to escapefitness.com/barrow. That's escapefitness.com/barrow to find out more. Enjoy the rest of this episode.
So I'm Kerstin Obenauer. I'm actually the CCO of 4Global, which is an international sports business based in London. And we do like data intelligence, and we aggregate, we standardize data, and we deliver actionable insights back to our customers. Our customers can be governments, can be cities, big federations. One of our biggest partners is on a national level, UK active, on an international level, European active. And we are here actually to present also the European Data Hub. This is what we did today, and yeah, it was...
So tell us then key takeaways from today.
Oh, there were a couple, actually, especially in transformational leadership perspectives. I do think what we have to understand as an industry, first of all, we have to look at data. We have to look at, like, you know, it's a data-rich industry, information poor. We still cannot showcase value, size, and impact of the industry. And I do think we have learned today, especially in the first session about the European Data Hub, how important it is to take the right decisions or to make the right decisions data-based, because data can actually win arguments, right, and enhance our gut feeling and our experience. And we are such an experienced industry, we're not showing it, what kind of impact we are providing actually to the population in regards to health savings. On one hand, we are facing several circumstances, life crisis, energy crisis, war, Brexit. I mean, there are so many things going to happen at the moment where we actually can be very proud of where we are already. And related back to the results we've seen from Deloitte in the morning, right? The industry is recovering. We see people have developed a different behavior, and we have also adjusted as an industry. We have developed programs for at home. We have developed kind of like, you know, adjusted our programs to pick up on the need even more of our customer. And I do think this is where we can be proud of ourselves, right? That we can do this, that we are that flexible and pivot turn, right? Because actually it gives us a thought, hey, we are capable to develop and to be flexible in this environment. So I think this is a strong message.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much.
You're more than welcome.
Lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
Well, I think the big takeaway for me, this is my first time at EHFF. So I'm coming out from Asia, and it's really interesting to see how the European market is doing. It's quite different from how Asia is doing. I think there's a lot more data that's coming through, and how the European operators are looking at that data and trying to plan their way forward. In Asia, it's pretty much, we're sort of still feeling our way around. There is a lot of recovery, there's a lot of optimism, there's a lot of business being done there, but I won't say that it's as much data-driven as it is out here in Europe. So, you know, you've got the likes of McKinsey, you've got Deloitte, everybody who's filling in that data in. I wish we had more of that in Asia. So that was one key takeaway that I took from today. We could do with a lot more data coming out from Asia, but that means that all the operators will have to get on board to be able to be willing to share that data. I think that's one thing. I think the other interesting takeaway was how we're sort of exploring what's to come in terms of technology. So with ChatGPT 4 and everything else, how we as an industry are going to embrace that. I think there's a lot of scope to develop, and for me personally, I go back and I'm going to be thinking a lot more about what can be done in that space. I think the great part of about the industry today is that we've come out of a pandemic, but the silver lining is that it's made everybody put fitness, health, wellness at the forefront. So everybody, we don't need to preach anymore. It's there. But how that's going to be consumed is going to be dependent on, I think, the different economies, the different countries. But, you know, the governments are already, you know, for example, in Singapore, the governments are already saying they need to take a step in the preventative health direction. So we don't need to preach to the governments anymore. They're already saying it. But now, as an industry, we need to now fill the gap to help the governments along and make it a lot easier. So I think that's the big difference now. I think we're all speaking a slightly, it's the same language, you know, but I think now there's a lot more, almost like singing in unison.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much.
Not all.
Time.
Thank you.
Well, I'm Saly Marone. I'm 52 years old. I work for Basic Fit as an international trainer, and I'm a member of the Europe Active Inclusion Group. Well, I missed the big part of the day, but I've spoken to some people, and I think that the fact that we are here today is a very good thing to start with. It means we are aware of something that should change in our sector. And the fact that all fitness professionals and people working in the fitness and people dealing with fitness professionals are willing to take steps to bring change in our sector in terms of diversity, for instance, and inclusion. I think there's a lot to do. There are lots of opportunities, and our sector can be leading by example. And I hope we will do that, because we are making people healthy. We are not selling, actually, we are offering health to people. So we could be, let's say, the trendsetters in terms of health. We are already, but also in terms of setting the human at the first place. You know, being a human, because it's a business. This business is about people, with people, about people, and for people. So it's really important to remember that we're working for people. And that without those people, our industry would not exist.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. Lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
Well, I think the key thing is that coming out of COVID, everyone thought that, you know, online and this digital age was going to take over, but brick and mortar, the four walls, that personal experience is still very much wanted by the masses and the punters, but using technology and using data in particular in a smart way to enhance the member experience. Members want to come and still be a part of a four-wall gym experience and interact with people, but using technology to leverage that experience, I think, is what I got out of today. We're in Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, US, Canada, the UK, and yeah, we're just over here in FIBO, excited to launch into Europe. We're just about to sign some contracts in Spain, talking to some interested parties in the Netherlands and Germany. So yeah, we're here to learn, to be quite honest. It's an exciting sort of stage in our journey. It's really interesting. We've never seen, I don't think, a more crowded space than what we're seeing right now in the group training space. It's really critical that you can articulate exactly what you do and how you differentiate in your market segment, because it is a crowded space. So we're sticking to our knitting. We know what we're doing. We know where we sit in the market space, but we just need to continue to be better at articulating that and getting that message to the punters, because ultimately there's lots of decisions to make at the moment and lots of places where they can go and get their fitness experience. So we just need to be getting better and better and better at articulating where we sit, who we are and what we're about, and stick to our core values and not try and be anything else.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you've got any value from it whatsoever, then please do us a favor, like, subscribe, tell somebody, and that will help us to be able to continue to do more of these and help you escape your own personal limits. Thanks for listening.